There are managers in all shapes and sizes, but what sets good apart from great is if they can really talk to their team. It's super important that you build rapport with your team, that you understand them, and in that way, you create this atmosphere of collaboration. Fernando, the guest of today's episode, is one of these managers that really understands what makes a good manager. He really has that connection with his team, and in this episode, he's sharing what he does and how he does it. I'm Bram, and this is The Sound of Sales. Hi there, me again. It would be great if you could hit the subscribe button below this video or wherever you're listening. It helps more than you think. It helps me get stuff done. Thanks a lot.
You and your team, you have the ability and the freedom to basically define that culture. More perspectives you can get, the better for you to develop yourself. We don't need a meeting to do that. If we need a meeting to do that, maybe we did something wrong.
Fernando, thank you for, first of all, joining me on The Sound of Sales. For the people that don't know who Fernando is, if I would call your wife right now and I ask her, what does Fernando do for a living? What would she reply?
Oh, thanks, Brent, for having me on the show. I think it would be more interesting to call my kids, but anyway, my wife, I think at the beginning she was, it was funny. At the beginning, she was thinking that I would not be traveling by work. She was thinking that was only for engineers and all of that people. So it was, okay, why you travel to work? Why travel that much? So I think she would, I think at this point, because we're married for 10 years, we just celebrated 10 years a couple of weeks ago. I think she would say
Congrats.
that I'm very dedicated on solving customers' problems and basically on taking care of my teams, because she listened a lot to my calls, especially on the last 2 years. So I think she has a pretty good idea of my job, which is basically focus on customers again and my team getting problems sorted out through technology. I think she'll say something like that, but she's a lawyer. She'll probably do that much longer than myself.
She bring all the words into it that nobody understands.
Exactly. To make it whatever, make it worth the money that the lawyers will charge, right?
Yeah, indeed. As you said, it could be interesting to ask your kids. What do you think your kids would say then?
I think because they only saw, or they primarily saw myself working during these pandemic days. So they have the impression that I talk to friends over the computer. I think that's essentially, I don't know. I was telling them that I was not going to work this week, and then the first reaction was, okay, so we're not going to be talking to friends over the computer? Yeah, I mean that's primarily it. I'm going to be more available to. So I think they believe it's all about, well, at the end of the day, it's all about conversations and meaningful conversations, right? But they don't have this idea. They only see the people there, and I'm talking to different people every time they come and accidentally or intentionally enter my office. So that's the image I think they have, and they'll probably explain to their friends. It'll be funny to record that one day.
So you have a lot of friends. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, between partners, customers, and the teammates, definitely, yes.
It's always funny for children. It's a whole other perception, and especially with the COVID situation, everybody working from home, kids running into the office, all that sort of stuff. How was that with you? How did you experience that those last 2 years now? Would you go back to like office life someday, or do you think like this is perfect for me?
Well, at the beginning was challenging, I think, for not only for me, I would guess it was all of that situations that you were feeling awkward, or maybe a kid just entering in your office was not the right thing, mainly when you were speaking to customers. But I think immediately we saw that, well, this is the new normal, and why not to take advantage of that, right? Why not to leave them a little bit, see that, and at the same time, customers and colleagues see that, wow, this is how all of us operate, right? And I think funny enough, they, as often happens, kids got used to things much easier and quicker than us, right?
Hmm.
So even right now, my wife struggles, or she thinks when she's passing behind me, but the kids, they're so natural, right? And so they just come in. Now, obviously, we created some sort of rules. Hey, I'm working, but one that I have created with them that was interesting was one day I was working, and they have not came to me. I was working late night to basically say hey, good night, right? And I said the other day, hey, Joanna and Tomas, I mean, you never do that again, right? I mean, if it's time to go bed and dad is working, you just come in, it's like a couple of seconds, just give you a kiss and have a good night, and that's it, right? It doesn't matter if it's the president or whoever it is, right? Because it's like, I mean, with the small kids like I have, it's like they grow every day, right? Today, like a thief that is going off. Tomorrow, they're speaking a different word. So that's I value a lot, and that's your question about whether I would be back to the office. I think I do miss the social part of the office, right? I would say I'm a social guy, so I miss that interaction. So so I believe that we are not going to come back to the way it was before, right? I was having a drink with a friend over the weekend. He was saying now he works for a bank, so he was saying I need to ask for the team to come back on a certain day because whatever the managing director will be there. So I think that the equation changed a little bit,
Hmm.
and I believe that last year we lost 25% of candidates just because we told them it was hybrid with 2 days. So I think what I'm seeing is that most of people, they are okay to come back to the office, but they don't want to be obliged to a certain date, right? They want to have that flexibility, and this is something that is like
Yeah.
gold at the moment, right? And that's the way I see. I see that if we can manage as teams or as groups to get together and to avoid losing that social part, that would be the ideal game for me.
Have you noticed that for your team, it was different in terms of, for example, what I have noticed with our team is that it's, for most of them, it's easier because they wake up closer to when they need to start to work, and they have a more of a life instead of like the commute and all that sort of stuff. Did you notice that people were more productive, or were there others where it was really not working out?
I think I believe it's kind of mixed, right? Because I appreciate the same way that you just described it. So I love the fact that I can save the commute time and spend more time with my kids and also spend more time working. But there are people that they either live alone, right? And they don't have that interaction with other people. So they
Mm.
suffered more during the pandemic, right? They are single, or they are living in a different city where not a lot of things are happening on a daily basis. So I think these people suffered in general much more than others, right? I would say, and also on the other side, I also faced people in my team where they they didn't have and still do not have the proper setup at home, right? So they don't have a separate space, right? So they have basically separated the space into their living room and transformed that into an office. So where their kids arrive, or the wife or the partner is just doing something, it's kind of disrupting the work. So I think we need
Mhm.
to be So I think that's the way I see it. And I see lots of people that, like myself, they're fine. I mean, we were able to set up a space, a dedicated space, no interruption, and we can concentrate. But I don't think it's a one size fits all, right? I think it's, and again, I think this is related to the way that you understand a little bit beyond um, uh, that professional, right? And get into what's going on the team's life, because ultimately it will affect their productivity,
Mhm.
right?
How do you go about doing that for being that human manager, so to say, that you understand the pains and the needs of your team?
I think it's not different from selling to a customer, right? If you are going there to sell a product and not to solve a problem, right? Ultimately, I think
Mhm.
the discovery or the meeting will not go that well, right? If you're there open-minded to really understand what's going on with that customer, then it might be the case that you don't have a solution at that point in time, or you may bring a partner on, you may bring someone that can, but you are being as a trusted, what I call trusted seller, right? Instead of trusted advisor, right? You're being seen like that.
Yeah.
So I think with the team is more or less the same concept, right? If you are genuinely interested, right? And and I don't know why I do that, to be very honest, but I always kick off my meetings with asking whatever what happened over the weekend, what's going on, so I know whatever if their parents are good or not, if they have issues or not. So I think dedicating, dedicating active listening, right, and generally interested on what's going on, show them that you're not asking just to be nice, right? And at the same time, you can be you can understand better when something went wrong, right? For example, when something goes wrong, for example, I don't know, one parent is ill, even if it's a relative that is ill, but you understand that relative is very important, it's not a distant one, right? I think
Mhm.
it would be
Yeah.
interesting for you to basically say, hey, take your time, and then we'll cover your back. Um, so I always use that. There is no rocket science, to be honest. I think it's more to be actively listening and asking questions, and be really interested. Sometimes my one-on-ones, they just go all the time on that, depending on the importance, on the criticality of the issue. But I feel very important. Then I can connect the dots in the future every time, right? Every time that we have
Yeah.
something, I can come back and say, well, I remember that. So I think it's pretty important.
Hmm. Yeah, but on the other side, you have managers that are like, let's just do the work, and you've seen those stereotypes in movies and that sort of stuff, like just get it done, the hustle, the bustle, and only care about the results. So, what makes how did you get to this stage where you really care about the human? Did you notice that that changes the culture of your company if you as a manager are more, yeah, okay, we need to have the results, but we also need to make sure that everybody feels good? um, how did you go about that? Did you read books about that, or what is your journey in there?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a combination of lots of things. Reading books definitely is one of them. I I like to read biography books about people that whatever I admire and I think are good leaders. So I think this gives a little bit of idea, and oftentimes in a much larger scale than at least I am used to
Hmm.
deal with. Um, I think also when you have had multiple leaders in the past and you can contrast the style that you just mentioned with the style that I am more that I like. It was kind of easy when I look backwards. It's easy to see the impact that one person had into my personality, my results, right? So yeah, I just prefer to be this human one, and I think I think sales, at least on the enterprise world, is typically um, it's typically a long game, right? It's more like a marathon instead of a
Mhm.
100-meter sprint, right? So I think as long as you have the trust and obviously you're doing the right things, and I think you get the results. Sometimes the companies will not have the patience, right? And back to your question about culture, what I believe is that I believe we have the chance to build our own culture within our micro team or even a larger team, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there is the culture of the company, which is very important. But I think ultimately, if you have a team, you and your team, you have the ability and the freedom to basically define that culture, right? And what I found is
Mhm.
that people will be more um, well, you are transparent. Will be times that you need to push more towards results. Like we are in sales, so we know how this works. But I think if you build the trust before, right? If you cared about that human being, then they will be saying, okay, this is the right time to do that. And because we work with this culture, we follow that philosophy. Let's put this way. Uh, I would do that, right? I'm happy to do that. So I found it easier to push when you create that type of culture instead of uh, being results oriented 100% of the time. We'll never forget the results. That's obviously we work on sales, but I think there are other ways to tackle that and to manage that and to make sure that people are into it 100% of the time.
Who inspires you to be a manager like this?
I think it was the manager that I had. I had I had two managers that inspired me. Well, but one more than the other one. Perhaps a good one to basically share the contact with you to be on the show. It's a guy that it's a guy that again it was all about that. It was all about thinking about the people. So inspired me from the simple things to the most complex ones. So it's one of that individuals that will go it doesn't matter if he walks like 4 blocks and see three people on the street who say good morning, how are you doing today? So I think it's from the simple things, right? It's the type of things that you basically you teach your kids to do that, right? If you meet someone, you say, right, you say sorry, you
Yeah.
say excuse me, you say thank you. So I think it starts with the basics, like in sales, right? If you don't do the right cadence, perhaps you're not going to close the deals. I think to be that human being, you need to start with the basics, right? If you're not doing the foundation very
Mhm.
good, you're not going there. So yeah, Alex is his name. Is definitely one guy that inspired me to be, or to or the way I was that's kind of funny. I was That's something I talked to my therapist, right? I At one point I said this was a couple of years ago. I said, "Hey, I don't think I am being as nice as I was before. Maybe I'm transforming myself into a more of the animal that you just mentioned before, right? So I worked a lot on with my therapist as well, who helped me a lot. But seeing this guy together with the therapist, I think it was something that brought me back to what I liked, right, and the way I like to be perceived not only by my peers, my teams, but my family as well.
Mhm. I like that. Have you something that pops to mind is the one way of gathering feedback from your team is the 360-degree feedback stuff to also get feedback about yourself in a way that you are being perceived by your team. Is that something that you often do? It's something that I also read in a book about the making of the manager by Julie Zhuo. She also says like you also need to ask for feedback to your team on how you can improve and how you are perceived. Is that something that you also chase? I have the feeling that you do.
Yeah, I do. And funny enough, it's kind of natural. So I kind of avoid these, not avoid, but we do have oftentimes in companies where you have to do it in a system once a year or twice a year.
Mhm.
And I think once you create this connection, right, that we talked before, I think it's easier, and you do it in every interaction without even noticing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's on a one-on-ones. It's after a customer call, we just jump on a call and say, "Hey, how it was? Or have we played correctly or not?" So it's like it for me. It feels more natural when you have this connection than when it's and then when it's time. It's what I typically tell my team. I say, "Hey, when it's time to do the year-end performance review, I mean, we don't need a meeting to do that. If we need a meeting to do that, maybe we did something wrong, right? Because whatever I'm going to write there and you're going to write there, it's a combination or a consolidation of everything that we have been talking over across the year, right? So yeah, I love it. And right now, I think it's not only the teams, right? I think it's so I'm doing that more online as well, depending on the type of services or things that I'm doing
Yeah.
um, with customers, with partners. So I think as much more perspectives you can get, the better for you to develop yourself, right? That's the way I think at least.
Yeah, totally. It's super important to get that on that level with your team as well, that you don't need a meeting to get feedback, or that you don't need a particular meeting, that it's just a natural flow of communication where you're almost like friends of each other. So your kid is right. You're talking to friends as well. And that makes it better, I think, as a manager as well, to have the finger on the pulse and be one of them instead of being the anger manager on top of them, breathing down their neck, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, let Joanna know that she was right. She'll be extremely happy about that. My daughter. And I agree. I think it's and it's yeah, you become friend because once you understand more than the work life, it's kind of you were really worried, right, or concerned, right? If whatever, if one of them is ill, the parents are ill, and again, it's a genuine. So I'm the one that I care about, whatever, calling them on their birthdays and basically say, hey, just call, even if it's a work day, just call, hey, this is that just to say happy birthday, we'll celebrate, take your day off or take half of a day, go and have fun, right? Um, so I think, yeah, on the feedback perspective, again, to me, when you asked me the question, I was just trying to remember the last meeting. I said, no, no, it was no meeting, right? It was just normal interactions. And I think I like it, right? At the end of the day, it's like, because when you set up that meeting and you don't have that trust, so the meeting itself about feedback, it transforms itself in a kind of a weird event, right? A kind of a fake type of
Yeah.
novel. I'm not sure if I'm using the right words, but whereas if you are having a conversation, you are in a such protected and controlled environment and trusted environment that they end up knowing that what you want is to basically make them better, right? And if you are asking for something, you are not going to say, well, because you told me I did something wrong, you'll be the next one to be punished on the next evaluation. No, it's because I'm generally interested
Yeah.
in understanding the gaps that I have and where I should be investing ultimately to make you perform better as well as a leader of the team.
But how do you, because you're on that level at that moment, how do you bring bad news, or how do you keep that line, because you're still the essentially the boss above them? Um, how do you make sure the line doesn't blur? So when there's bad news or there needs to be a performance review and that sort of stuff, that can still happen.
Yeah, I love the transparency, right? And I think I think oftentimes, especially on big organizations, but also on small and medium ones, I mean, the truth is not, I don't know, the truth is like created on the top of the chain and then somehow it's like being filtered, right? And I think that sometimes the teams appreciate more transparency, even if it's tough, right? Because they will see, well, this is the truth. They will see, well, this is a team thing. We need to work together, right? Um, and I like to be straightforward as well, right? I mean, it happened at the beginning of this year when we had to adjust the quotas a little bit of the team, and you can imagine what adjust the quotas mean, right, for all of us in sales. But I think when I got that, I said, well, I had my questions to the upper management, right? I had my points, but after that was solved, I mean, I was not able to basically manage that. You know what? First thing to do is to talk to my team,
Mm.
right? And I think, again, if that trust was created before, right? Some of them in this specific case, but it happened in others as well, they were not happy, obviously, not happy at all, and was basically, I had a couple of one-on-ones afterwards to basically complain. And I said, hey, okay, I mean, I understand, right? To be honest, I agree with you, right? So I think this is another important point. I mean, before, way before, I was probably that corporate guy saying I agree with everything that comes with the communications, but now I'm not, right? Because I care more about the team, right? So I'm saying, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't agree as well, right? But guess what? I don't have anything to do. I tried this, I tried that, right? And I'm open. If you have other ideas, we can try, but it is what it is, right? So we have two choices, right? Either we just stop complaining right now and start working to make it happen, or we just keep complaining and waste our time to basically make everything happen, right? So I think
Mhm.
do it fast, quickly, with transparency, and make them trust that also you have a plan to basically overcome that bad news, right? Or at least you can build a plan together, which is even better, right? What I try to do is try to invite them. Hey, it is a challenge. It's very challenging, right? But let's come together as a
Mhm.
team and build another plan or build a version 2.0 of our plan, right? And then you make them part of the solution and not only part of the problem.
That brings more, again, that builds that culture of trust, and it builds that sense of belonging. The whole team is one. You don't see that a lot, especially in a larger company, for example. You're now leaving there, or you already left when this comes out. But it's good that you get the freedom to do that, because sometimes, yeah, even the manager of a team doesn't get all the freedom, and is again managed, maybe micromanaged by somebody above that. That limits their capacity and their capabilities. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I completely agree. And I think that's something that I personally learned as well. I mean, you are the one that needs to push that and needs to create that culture, right? Especially in large organizations, if you don't say no, if you don't challenge the status quo, you'll be just in the army, right? You'll be
Hmm.
just following orders, and there'll be orders coming from whatever 5 or 6 levels above you, and you'll be yes sir, yes sir. You'll be like my son's kickboxing class, right? so I think it's when you see that the power comes from the people that are working on the ground, because that's ultimately it is, right? So oftentimes, so when the teams are discussing sales things and how whatever, if the pricing is correct, if we are approaching the right things, and they're not involving the teams that are in the front line, I say sorry guys, I mean, that's fine. It's like
Hmm.
you sit in a corner office, a very big one. It's when was the last time you met a customer, right? So I think so. Obviously, I learned how to challenge that in a political, intelligent way. But I think it's empowering the team, right? Ultimately, so that's the most important thing. So if you don't empower the team, then you have a big problem, right? And to me,
Yeah.
that's critical, and that's part of the culture that I mentioned before. I just I just love to create that type of culture. Yeah.
If we look back a couple of years, and I would ask you um, to to share your hardest moment that you can remember from the last 5 years, let's say, what would that be?
So I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when the company shifted a little bit the priorities. So and then decided to deprioritize the business that I was running in the region that I was running. Um, so what they did, so they have not taken the action, but they prepared the ground to take the action to basically uh, get everybody out of the business, right? And and to me it was, well, for a couple of reasons it was nonsense. Number one, uh, we had hired the people, the team, what, 9 months before, and our sales cycle is like 12 to 18 months. So again, you should expect that results will not come
Hmm.
that fast. We also had a business case approved to the board to basically build the business. So I was I was devastated, right? Because it was so these individuals, they joined the business because I sold them a dream, right? I was the one interviewing and
Yeah.
selling them a dream, right? I mean, they could, okay, this company is nice, whatever it is, check the website, it was nice, but I was the one investing lots of times to basically sell them, right? So then I was in that situation. So what I did, I said, so as all of the big decisions I need to make in my life, I kind of like to sleep with them if I have the chance, right? Sometimes you don't have the time, but sometimes you have, right? So this one I had the time to sleep a couple of nights with that, and I had two options, right? I either had the options to fight or to let it go, and I decided to fight, right? I said, you know what? But I will fight in a very smart way. So what I did, I still have that email, but I wrote like probably what was a 2-page email, which was more like a business case about the the loss, but also the cost of opportunity and how long it will take for us to build up again at the same level that we were at that time, and trying to estimate the revenue impact for the company, right? I say, hey, ultimately, if you're not thinking about the people, think about the revenue, right? So that's what I did. And but this was as large organizations operate. This took me since I was told to the point where I wrote the email, to the point where they said, okay, I mean, we got a point. I mean, it's a fair one. Let's move on. It was probably over a month. So I was eating myself inside, right? Thinking about what could happen. But at the same time, I was thinking, you know what? I did the right thing, right? And my boss at the time was not, I mean, felt a little bit uncomfortable with the tone of the email, but ultimately they came to me and said, you know what, that was a very good approach, a very good way of caring about the team and caring about the business. It showed that you have also a good plan for what comes next. So it gave us confidence to move forward. But it was really stressful, to be very honest.
Yeah, there are like situations, if I would get that on my plate, I would want to deal with it in the next 24 to 48 hours, maybe. And just like not sleeping, just fixing the problem.
Yeah, 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 it's true, but it's there are some times that you don't have the control of 100% of the scenario, right? And ultimately, what you can do is like, I need, and I am this type of person. I kind of need to think or believe that I did the right thing, right? So I did the right thing with the right intentions, caring about the team. That's it, right? There are more than that, perhaps I cannot do. So in this situation, I kind of spoke to multiple stakeholders as well after I sent that email to basically sell the idea of the email, trying to pitch them properly and say, hey, this is why I sent this email. So after I kind of conducted all of these meetings, I was feeling good, right? I was feeling, you know what? If that happens right now, I will need to work out on that. But I was feeling good.
Yeah, it must be a frightening moment when you hit send and then wait for a reply on the email.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was during the night, so I was waiting just the other day. So it was not a good night, definitely.
What is a thing that you would you are you grew into this? So you became you had someone you looked up to. You became a manager. You knew like this is what I want to do. This is what I would not want to do. I don't want to focus too much on these results. But if somebody today is listening to this and the person is like, okay, I'm currently in this role, I want to start managing my team. What are for you the things that a starting manager should take into account um, before their ego starts to talk? You know what I mean? A lot of people are like, I'm a manager now and I'm gonna run the fucking show. Sorry for my language, but what would you? What are your main takeaways, basically?
I think that is one. That's a very interesting question, but that is one basic thing that sometimes, as you mentioned, right? Sometimes people will think about the position for, well, it is prestigious, whatever it is, right? You are leading a team, but ultimately, if you go to the foundation of it, right? Individual contributor versus a team lead, right? Or leadership position, right? So individual contributor, you are doing whatever. You are running the show yourself, and you are making whatever you want to make. And that's your business, right? So the basics about leading is your result will be the combination of the results of everybody in your team. And your team will be as strong as the weakness uh, part of your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is an element um, of yeah. I mean, if you have that ego, or if you think you have it, you need to remember yourself, right? That there will be the combination of team members, and if you have a team member that is not performing well, sorry, it's going to crush your business, right? So you need to make
Mm-hmm.
everything work, right? And I think also another thing that I think it's important, if I suggest to someone that is starting, um, and maybe thinking that the ego will come, I think it's a good idea if you have the chance to play it a little bit before you are in that position, right? Because I think this is another problem nowadays, right? That people will, and not only for the management, but also for any type of position within your current company, which is easier. So people will jump into something without knowing anything, right? Sometimes you have the chance to play, right? Or to interact with people
Mm-hmm.
over LinkedIn, over other social platforms, right? And have a little bit of that sense before you are in charge of that. So if you have a chance, if you are in an organization and you have one leader that is one style A and style B, and you can be part of that team a little bit, just as a side hustle and part of that one as well, you'll kind of see And not only on the leader perspective, but also on the team perspective, you can speak to that people and learn from them.
Yeah.
I think you will probably have a clear idea about the impact that they are generating, the leaders are generating on their teams, and then you're going to identify yourself, right? Well, should I go this way, the A path or the B path, right? And so that's for the same company. And what I found interesting is that you can do that externally as well, right? I mean, just reach out to someone in LinkedIn or someone that you admire, that you believe it's a leader with that style, and interact with that person, right? And ask questions and say, hey, I wanna jump into that position. Obviously, this is beyond the typical things, right? I would read some books as well. I would definitely listen to podcasts like these as well. Obviously, everything will kind of bring good stuff to your memory. But I think these two are good ideas to basically jump into that before. And also, one thing that I love to do when I have someone in my team willing to take a first time management position, what I do is I say, okay, we are going to work on that together. So we're going to have a development plan together. I have something that I call earnings and development plan that I typically do with my team. But what I do as well, I assign a mentor, which is a different style for me, right? I say, hey, go and do some mentoring with this guy, and I help them to structure the mentoring a little bit if they have not passed it through that process before. Because again, it gives you a different perspective, right? And you can combine whatever is good on my brain, on your brain, and on this person's brain as well, and then basically create your own style. So that's something that I love to do as well.
Again, this shows what type of manager you are, of course. So you think with the person and you work with them towards their goal. Um, it's I'm constantly in my mind with the title of this episode. It's like the human manager or something. I don't know. Sorry, that's what I have in my mind. It pops constantly. It keeps popping up, but it shows how you are with your team, and I think it's very inspirational for people in your team that they can broaden their horizon and have this feeling of belonging, and whatever dreams they have, they can chase them. Um, it's something, it's almost like a fake it till you make it approach. Like you want to become a manager, but first you got to fake it a little bit, and you got to act in your own mind, what type of manager would I be, and then you become it. Instead of, I think a lot of people jump into it with closed eyes almost, from I'm working at company A right now, company B wants to hire me, and I get a great role there, they jump into it without the experience. From what I believe, you wouldn't recommend just jumping into it, but rather come prepared, right?
Yeah, look, I have not had that chance to do that pilot myself, to be honest, and I jumped into that position the way you just described it. But I think if you have the chance, so in my team, in my current team, well, my ex team, let's put this way. Um, so I do have two experience. So I was running one experience again, without, I remember that HR was a little bit worried. No, this person is going to lead. No, 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 no. It's not going to lead on the org chart. Don't be scared with that. We're running a pilot, right? This person is in charge of this mini group. Let's put this way, mini team. You give him, in this case, the opportunity to basically develop some stuff that he needs to develop to become a manager. We together we mapped these gaps, and we said, you know what? And I have built this mini team in a way that there was one high performer, one that was average, and one that was low performer. She said, you know what? You need to be able to tackle that, and I'm going to help you, obviously. So there was this one example, which is still running, which gave me more time to work more strategically with other people, but more important, gave him the time to basically develop and test that out. And there was another guy
Mhm.
who was not running a team, but but it was his plan to become a manager, and he was doing that naturally, right? So when we had that conversation, that when he told me, I said, you know what, take more things, right? So take this and that. I think it'll be awesome, and let's see how the team reacts. So also sometimes what I see in these companies, that they cut the wings of people, right? And I think this guy, for example, he
Yeah.
started to take responsibility and accountability, and the team started to react very well, right? Because he's very good. And by the way, we are going to continue in mentoring. So that was a sense of something important, right? Half of my team will do mentoring with me after I leave the company. So it'll be, I said, okay, that's cool, right? Because they saw value on our conversations, on the way that we were developing ourselves as individuals, as professionals, as human beings, right? Ultimately. So I think yes, if you can try, if you can fake before you make, like you mentioned, I think it's the perfect environment to tweak a little bit, adjust it, and then when you jump to the position, I think you will have other challenges, but perhaps the ones that you have already tried, it'll be better for you and your team.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um, we're near the end of the episode, so I need to pop my last question, and this is a totally different one. So prepare. If I would be able to give you a billboard at the side of a highway, and I tell you, look, Fernando, with everything that you learned along the years with your team as a manager, what would you put on a billboard?
That's a cool one. That's a very cool one. I think I think I would have fun. That's it. Because, and I think obviously have fun without a context will be okay. I can go to a party, whatever it is. But I think it's, if you're not having fun, I think it's probably the best key performance indicator about whether you should be doing what you are doing, right? And having fun is, okay, I'm having fun with my customers, which means I'm enjoying the conversations I'm having with them. I'm adding value to them. If you have a partner ecosystems, I just love to bring partners together and create that additional value to the
Mm.
customers, to the team. I enjoy being with my team, right? It's a design thinking session. It's a deal clinic session. I just love it collaborating with them. I love the person I work with. I feel so much inspired by that person, right? I feel that I impact, but at the same time, I feel impacted by the team. And the results, obviously, right? The results are coming because of the combination of all of this, and you are learning, right? I think
Mm.
what I mean by fun is everything that I just mentioned. It's not that simple, but I think it's the KPI that will tell you whether it's a meaningful journey or not.
I understand what you mean. I think the fun aspect in there makes it the performance that you mentioned. So being a manager without the fun part, without being friendly to each other, without enjoying the process would make you a results oriented manager instead of a human one.
Yeah, I agree. And ultimately, will you will become whatever. You become a micromanager. You become that person that perhaps you don't wanna you I mean, you don't want for yourself. You don't want for your team, right? Yeah, the fun embeds all of these um, underneath, right? And I think
Mm.
along the road you should be having fun. If you're not having fun, yeah, what's the point, right?
Yeah, indeed. With these words, Fernando, I would like to thank you for joining me on the Sound of Sales.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Bram. And well, hopefully our audience will appreciate that. And thanks for the invitation. It was lovely to meet you.